Now, going beyond what the lab sheet gives us, we're going to be looking at doing some smoke testing on this equipment. So I've got a smoke tester here. Basically, all it is just an air intake. We get pressurized shop air hooked up to it. We can measure the amount of pressure going through for our flow. We can also measure how much of a leak we have with this gauge over here. We can control the flow. Inside, there is mineral oil and a heating unit. Heat up the mineral oil, creates the smoke. We then pump that smoke into the system. Now keep in mind that vent valve is going to be normally open. If we don't close that valve, any smoke we put into the system is going to go right out. So the first thing we have to do is we have to make sure that our vent valve is closed. So I'm going to turn that vent valve on. You'll have to use a scanner to do this on most vehicles. Some vehicles you'll have to go in and actually put a jumper on it to close that solenoid. All depends on how the vehicle is set up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to that service port, that green cap. We'll take that green cap off, and down inside there's typically going to be a Schrader valve. There are adapters that will screw on that will open the Schrader valve. What I found works best is just to remove the Schrader valve, and it's basically a standard Schrader valve. The only difference is this one has reverse threads. So when we're taking it out, we have to make sure we're aware of those reverse threads. Take that Schrader valve out, and that allows us to flow the smoke into the system faster and speeds up the whole process. So we're going to take the system. I've got it hooked up to shop air. I've got it hooked up to the battery. I've got it turned on, warmed up. Now I'm going to take my test hose and I'm going to hook it up to my test port. Okay, so I've got that hooked up to the test port. I've turned on my vent solenoid so that the vent is closed. Now I'm going to let this flow. The first thing to happen on this gauge is jump all the way up to about 50 thousandths of an inch. Then it's settled down, and we're pretty close to zero down here. We're at about 10 thousandths of an inch, a little bit less. So we got the flow going through. I've got this thing set to full flow, and what will happen is as I let this run, eventually this fuel tank will get filled with smoke. All that empty space will get filled with smoke. Right now the smoke is going in to the system, filling up our charcoal canister, and we can see what our flow is. All right, our flow is settled. Now we're at zero. So we basically pressurize the system. Oh, it just jumped up a little bit on me. As it pressurizes, it's going to settle down to zero. So that tells us that we're stabilized. Now, if we had a leak in this system, you would see that pressure changing. So I'm going to take and I'm going to open up our 20 thousandths leak. When I do this, we'll start to see the smoke come out of there. Now I put this black background in there to make it more evident so that we can actually see the smoke coming out, and we can start to see that smoke wafting out of there. Now just on the white background it's hard to see, but with that black background it becomes more obvious. Also, with that 20 thousandths leak open, if I come back over here on my gauge, I see that I'm bouncing right around 20 thousandths of an inch.